I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're venturing into the post-apocalyptic world of A Ray of Hope, New Beginnings. It's written by a wonderful author. Her name is Elaine Scarver. Amidst the ruins of democracy and civilization, this Christian novel unfolds a tale of survival, faith, and the indomitable human spirit. Join us right now as we dive into the harsh, reborn world through the eyes of Para, a young woman with nothing but her faith and newfound animal companions. We're delighted to have this very powerful author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank our team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her remarkable book. The links are below this interview. Elaine, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
I'm glad to be here, and thank you for the invite.
My pleasure. This is an incredible book. Give the folks at home an overview of what it's about.
Well, it starts off with a young woman who has recently orphaned from her father's. Her father has died, and her wicked stepmother has kicked her out of the home, the only home that she's ever known. So she's out in this wasteland that's, in the world by herself. So she only has her faith to rely on, and she thanks God for having the father that he gave her, who taught her to have faith and under the worst circumstances to maintain her faith. And she goes out into the world with nothing but her sword, a bow and arrow, and she meets the two pups who originally was she thought was going to kill her. But faith again stepped in and saved her from that. So she and the pups became like a adoptive family, the same type of family that God wants. And and they're venturing out in the world together. And unfortunate incident happens with Para where she's abducted and she's attacked and left for dead, and she's not without her dogs, dog companions. So she's eventually rescued by a small woman who by chance was living in the wasteland and nourishes Para back to health. And the story goes on, and they're going through all of their trials and tribulations and so forth. That God is always with you.
Yeah.
No matter what you do in life, God is there. Yeah. And Para realizes that, she has nothing but her faith. Her new companion, her lifesaver, however, Sophia, is battling faith because she's never really known God. Because she's lived out in the wilderness by herself for 14 years. And her faith, Sophia's faith, is really in herself at this point. She hasn't really known what the Lord can do for her. So, and they bond, and they get, they bond together. They become a family, Para, Sophia, and the two dogs. But other things happen, and they end up in a colony called Ansel. And Para meets her husband out in the wilderness, and things begin to happen. And you see how things come together. You see villains, people who don't know the Lord, coming at them. And you see people who do know the Lord standing by in faith and having hope for a better world. And there's a lot of things that happens in this book. Of course, this book is one of three. It's part of a trilogy. So if you buy this book, you'll know what happens in the other two, but it will be very confusing when the other two come out if you're not on target with this one. Because this sets the stage.
Yeah. I think what I love best about your book is there's a lot of books out there that deal with a post-apocalyptic world, but generally they're devoid of faith. They're basically devoid of hope. But your book is about faith. It's about hope. God is always with Para. And that's what makes it different. So faith obviously is something that is important to you. And I guess that's part of the message you want to get across to the audience, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And one of the messages that I try to get to my audiences is the character development. I try to select names that have meaning to them. So you can kind of tell by the names of the character who's going to be the villain and who's
Mhm.
going to be the protagonist.
Yeah.
So, we kind of, it kind of gives you clues throughout the book. If you're really looking and you're saying, why she named that person that name in the back of the book, it tells you
That's great.
exactly why.
What's the significance of Paris' name?
Paris name means um, birth, woman who can birth, you
Mm.
know. And in the story, the women in the story, they're either infertile
Hmm.
or they can birth a child, but the children are born with deformities because of the nuclear fallout from the nuclear wars.
Mm.
So it's power is what you would call a commodity for the world to get back to some sort of normalcy, which it would never be, of course, until um, people who know um, about nuclear war. Nuclear war destroys
Hmm.
the soil. It will destroy. It will cause disease in people. People will have strange rashes. Women and men will become infertile from nuclear fallout. So
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff is played in here. And you find when Tara gives birth to her first child, she prays very, very hard because she's praying for a healthy child, a
Yeah.
child that's has no deformities. Like a lot of women, they still can have babies, you know, but they're born with deformities.
Right.
And where Para ends up is in a colony called Ansel,
Mhm.
and that colony is full of people who have deformities,
Mhm.
people who may have disease and so forth, but it's based on love,
Yeah.
you know, because they
Absolutely.
know without love, there is no survival. And who is love? Jesus,
God. Yeah,
so
Jesus. Yeah, absolutely.
amen.
Let me ask you this.
Exactly.
Have you envisioned the series as a TV series, perhaps? There's a lot of sci-fi out there, but there's not a lot of sci-fi that's infused with Christianity. So I think it's
Yeah,
time for it, right?
exactly. And that's why I wrote this book to try to um, produce a new type of genre, sci-fi mixed with Christianity,
Hmm.
because in the long run, they do a lot of sci-fi, but it doesn't have anything to do with Christianity. You rarely see that. I
Yeah.
mean, I may have seen a couple of um, movies out there that had a little bit in it, but it's not at
Right.
the extent that I'm placing Christianity in it. So
Exactly. What's the
it's
status
it's
of your
fairly
other two
new.
books? This is a trilogy. Are all three written and all three out there for sale right now?
They are all three written. They are
Mhm.
not in the publisher's hands.
Okay.
I have I'm tweaking them. The next one is called A Ray of Hope, Secret of the Four Keys,
Mhm.
and the final is called Ray of Hope Triumph.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And
Well, A
yeah,
Ray of Hope is a great title for this series because they do offer the reader hope. When you feel like we are at end times, you'll realize that there is God who is walking with us. The name of the book we've been talking about today is called A Ray of Hope, New Beginnings by Elaine Scarver. It's set in a time when democracy and civilization has fallen apart, but this Christian novel unfolds a tale of survival and faith as well as the indomitable human spirit. Elaine, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
thank you for inviting me. I'm just thrilled to be here.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you on the show today. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.